This conference will now be recorded.
Get going. Just a note that this webinar is going to be recorded and will be available shortly after we're finished up. We'll post everything so you can view it again or share it to somebody else if you'd like to. For those of you who have called in, I'm going to leave you unmuted in the hopes that you will choose to mute yourself as needed. It's because you can't see the screen and use the chat feature to ask questions, it's really the only option you have. So if you can just keep in mind that those of you on the phone, you are not muted. And we will just turn off webcams for this because we'll just be showing my screen throughout the presentation. So at the end, there will be a formal time to ask questions, but please don't hesitate to ask them as we go along using the little chat feature. For those of you joining by computer, you'll see a little chat box down in probably the lower right-hand corner, and you can type messages in there as needed. All right. Okay, let's just get into this. So the faces on the screen that you see right now is myself on the left. James Lawrenson is our web coordinator. He's in the middle. And Sylvia Braid is our communications coordinator. Missing from this is our resource production assistant, Diane Wamsley, and Sarah Kurd. They are not really part of this webinar, so I thought I'd make it less confusing and just show the three of us. These are the three people that whose work we're going to be talking about today as we talk about church websites. Myself, I've been the Associate Secretary of Communications for 6 years now, and I've been at the PCC National Office for 12. Before I worked in this job, I worked for Presbyterian World Service and Development and Communications there. And the great thing about that job is that it allowed me to travel around to a lot of different congregations and groups, visiting them and doing a lot of guest speaking. And I really got to see a lot of what's happening in different congregations across the country. And it was really informative when I came into this position and as I work with different congregations and groups. What has also helped with this work is PCC Web. PCC Web is the free website hosting that we offer through our office. I'm sure some of you taking part today are using PCC Web for your congregation's website. Some of you might have your own, but it could be something that you're thinking about switching to. It doesn't really matter. What we're going to be talking about today is congregation websites in general. But through hosting PCC Web, we host about 300, just over 300 different congregation and groups in the PCC. And really, we have seen that there is a huge need out there to improve church websites, that there are many hosted through PCC Web or otherwise that really need to look at some of the basics of web development and what the type of information you want to have to make the site truly effective. I think, unfortunately, given that many in our congregations or the people helping out are volunteers, that it's not always the thing that first comes to mind. And maybe people that worked on it have switched off. I can't tell you how many people have joined PCC Web because their congregation's website was hosted by the grandson of a woman who was a member of their congregation, no longer is, and they can't get the access information, and it's been years since the site's been updated. So they might switch over to PCC Web and in the hopes of getting set up to run their own website a little bit more effectively with some more updates, and that is awesome. I really want to encourage you in this work. It's like I said, sometimes it's an afterthought, but it's really important. We've had a lot of complaints come to our office about different congregational websites, and some of the most common ones are things like, the congregation's website says St. Andrews, but there's no city name. And as you know, we have a lot of St. Andrew Presbyterian churches. Maybe there's no church service time listed on the site. There might be no special service information, such as like if there's a guest preacher or like a church picnic, maybe that's not listed on there. We've had closed congregations that still have websites, and I've even had people trying to attend those gatherings only to find out the church has been long closed. But at the same time, we have open congregations that don't have any web presence at all. And then we have some people complaining that the physical address of the congregation isn't available, only the mailing address. And obviously that's hugely problematic. So we're all on the same page here. I think it's important to know that Canadians, in particular, we are really online, active, and very internet savvy. Our country has over 90% internet usage, which is one of the highest rates in the world. We have saturation across the country, and it's not youth, it's all age demographics. So it's something that we need to keep in mind as we work on our websites, because there's a certain expectations that come with the work that we do online. Just as all of us are using the website, so are the people that are visiting our websites. If you want proof as to how much Canadians are online and active, approximately 1 in 5 Canadians haven't gone more than 8 hours without using the internet. These are statistics from 2018, so this is probably even slightly higher. 57% of users are 55 years of age or older are surfing the web on mobile devices, and that is a huge leap from only 2015. Nearly 3 out of 4 Canadians spend at least 3 to 4 hours online every single day. And I can't believe some people admitted this, but 46% of Canadians admit to using their mobile phone while in the bathroom. So as you can see, people are definitely using the internet, and they're using it a lot. Why does it matter? Well, it matters because, like I said, people have expectations about how things work online. Why is our church website so important? It is crucial because for many, many people, visiting your church online is the new front door. People are not just going to walk into the church. They feel more comfortable checking you out online before they ever physically come near your church. For many, it's a primary form of communication for potential visitors to your congregation. If you're looking to reach new people, you need to be thinking about your website. There is definitely an attitude, and I have to say, I feel it myself, that if you can't find it online, it doesn't exist. If I'm looking to buy something, visit something, I am certainly checking it out online. If I can't find it, I probably am not going to go. Just a note that I sometimes want to highlight is that when we talk about, working in digital platforms and online, it doesn't mean young. We really have to get that out of our heads. Many people still feel that way, and it's just not the case. Like I said, in Canada in particular, those of us who are online are all age groups. And I have a 4-year-old, and he's even online, so it's really and truly all ages. Also, the great thing about a church website is that it really is an invaluable opportunity to share information about your mission and ministry. You're going to reach more people, and you have this great, great chance to show the world what you're doing. It's also a safe environment to learn about your congregation and how you do things. Like I said, if I'm going to go check out somewhere new, I'm going to look it up online so that I have a good feel for what I'm going to be into. I might look at the physical location. I might look at the outside to make sure I'm going to the right building. I might try to do some gallery previews. There's all kinds of things, but it's safe. I'm in the comfort of my own home, and I'm then very comfortable, and then I can go and be more comfortable in person. The web also is a great way to keep existing members connected. If maybe people miss services, or there are special events or something, some kind of mission opportunity that you wanted to highlight, of course the website is a good way to get that information across as well. So in a nutshell, your website is an easy, very important way to engage with people, new people, existing members, and more. So who is your primary audience? If you remember nothing else, please remember this. Yes, like this picture shows, it could be a cat who's surfing your website. It very much could be. However, that's not likely. It's going to be visitors to your church, people who have not been before, people who are interested but have not actually become a member or have maybe even gone ever. Church members are important audience members of your website, definitely, but they are not the people you should be designing your website for. They are already insiders. The members are insiders. You see them on Sunday mornings. They hear the announcements in the bulletins. They know about you. They know about service time. They know what to expect. But those who are not, the visitors, they're the ones who need your website because they want to learn about you, because maybe they're interested in visiting. So when I was working for Presbyterian World Service and Development, like I said, I would travel around to a lot of different congregations and I would check them out online before I went. I'm new, I'm traveling in and I want to check it out. So one congregation I went to in particular, it was in towards the summers around June, and I was dressed very formally and I was a speaker. I thought that was appropriate. I looked them up online. And only to get there and find the clerk of session greeting me in flip-flops and a tank top. I felt very out of place. I was overdressed, and I gotta tell you, I would have been a lot more comfortable wearing my own flip-flops or being dressed a little more casually, but that was not what I got from their website. That was not the feel that I got. But see, I was checking them out online before I got there. So as a new person, the website was perfect for me. So that's why what we're going to talk about now is how to get each of our websites to a point where we feel it represents us fairly well and that it's great for people who want to come and we can welcome them into our congregations. Okay, so here are some of the essentials. The essentials that you need for your website to make sure, like if you have nothing else but a landing page with this information, you have a good website. Too often there are websites with out-of-date information and things that don't belong on there anymore. It's maybe like the different minister or all kinds of things. That is going to be doing more harm than good. A simple one-page landing page can be maybe what you decide to do until you have more time and energy to spend on the rest of the site. And these are the things you would include. If you have a more in-depth site, these are the things that you would want to have on your homepage. Obviously, your church name, the full church name, your location, the full location, the physical address, a welcome message. So it's not just enough to say worship's at 10 and that's it. You want to welcome people. So just to give you an example, for those of you that are viewing the screen right now, this is an example from St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Stittsville, Ontario. And when I spoke at this church a while back, and I was so impressed with the welcome message that they had on their website. It's quite lengthy. It's going to take up 2 screens here, but just to give you a little taste of it, it says, we extend a special welcome to those who are single, married, divorced, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, transsexual, asexual, pansexual, cisgender, two-spirit, filthy rich, dirt poor, ne parle pas anglais, or have no idea what most of those terms mean. We extend a special welcome to those who have crying babies or crying newborns, skinny as a rail or could afford to lose a few pounds. We welcome you if you can sing like Taylor Swift or if you can't carry a note in a bucket. And it goes on and on. It is a wonderful thing trying to basically encompass everyone. The last line says, we welcome tourists, seekers and doubters, bleeding hearts, and you. This was a very lengthy but impressive welcome message. I usually advocate for shorter text on websites, but this is a special case where I think their welcome message, it really says something about that congregation. And I challenge you to read this and not smile at some point and think, I got to check this out. I have to go to this church. So back to the essentials: church name, location, welcome message, a call to action. So many people will just put this welcome message up. The wonderful welcome message like that is great, but it's not enough to say you're welcome here. Take it that one step further with an action item. Please join us. You want people to come, make sure you specifically say that. Otherwise, people are going to think, wow, you have a really nice church. Make them say, come, join, take part. If you're going to have someone join you, then you need to tell them when your service takes place. So you need time of service and worship information. You also need to list some things about your minister and the leadership there. That's always very helpful to include. People are going to be wondering who is leading. Contact information is useful so that someone has more questions, maybe some specific issues that they're not sure if you can deal with. They will want to reach out to you, so make sure that they can do that quickly and easily. Provide contact information, and if you're going to share a mailbox, a voicemail box or an inbox, you want to make sure that those are being monitored. Don't give them something that someone only checks once a month. Finally, is there any other relevant information that would be important for a visitor to know about? Do you have maybe construction taking place that could be confusing to navigate? Maybe your parking lot is hard to find. If there's something you would like a visitor to know in advance, make sure you include it right up front on your homepage. Okay, so these are some things to think about if you really want to kick up your site and make it really excellent. Again, consider the visitor. Sometimes it's hard for us to do because we're so close to what happens in our own congregations, but try to imagine that you're someone brand new and who's never been there, maybe not even familiar with the Presbyterian service at all. Try to design your site with that person in mind. Is there parking available? Where's the washroom? Is there children's programming? And if so, what are the ages that it's for? I mean, if you have a newborn or if you have a 12-year-old, are there options for that? Coffee hour. I have yet to see a website that clearly lists information about coffee hour, but new people coming to your church may not know that that exists. If you want them to stay and join you, make sure it's listed on your site somewhere. Accessibility options. Do you have an elevator? Is there like a ramp for people that are in wheelchairs? Things like that. And related to that, hearing impairment options, large print Bibles, things like that, so that someone will know that you can accommodate them. It's always a good idea to include a little bit of information about leading with care. Now, outsiders may not know what that lingo is, so it would be good to explain that a little bit. And if you're looking for more information on that, you can visit the Presbyterian.ca website, and we have Leading with Care section on there. But I just mentioned it because it is good to include things like that, especially when you have children's programming and people might be nervous about leaving their kids in the care of someone there. And finally, the what to expect details. I'm going to give you an example of sort of like what would be kind of considered in a what to expect part. But you could say something like, you would really want to spell this out. Our church offers a casual, relaxed time of worship that lasts approximately 1 hour. When you arrive, you will be welcomed by one of our friendly greeters. They will offer you a church bulletin. Please seat wherever you are comfortable in the church sanctuary. There are times during the service that the congregation will stand together. These times are marked with an asterisk in the bulletin. Bold print in the bulletin means we say things in unison. Children who are willing to come forward to the front of the sanctuary for a special children's story are more than welcome. They will then proceed to church school together if they are comfortable to do so. Following worship, there is this casual time of fellowship in the church hall with home-baked treats and refreshments. Please join us. That's just an example, and obviously you would have to tailor the text to your own congregation, but do you see how it spells out everything in every point, so that somebody new is going to feel comfortable. They're going to know what to expect, and they're going to be grateful for that information. It's going to make them fit in more, and that's what we all want to do. That we don't want to stand out. We don't want to be hovering at the back going, oh, what do I do? Welcome people in by spelling it all out. So here's a little bit of advice with regards to content. These are kind of some specifics based off of things that I've seen a lot of on church websites. Avoid the copy and paste. We all do it, even myself. I sometimes do it too, but we have lots of different communications channels, right? We have newsletters, bulletins, emails, websites, social media posts. We have all these different things. However, we cannot just copy and paste from one channel into another. Different communications channels require different ways of communicating. You really do need to tailor your content to what you're posting to. If it's a social media post, it's not going to look the same as a website post. It's not going to look the same as something that appears in your newsletter. Yes, there will be parts of it that are the same, but you want to adapt for how people are reading it, like where they're at. If they're reading it online, if they're reading it on print, and so on. Please try to avoid PDF dumping. That's kind of the informal term for it. That's when people have heavy amounts of PDFs on their website. Now I say this knowing that the Presbyterian.ca website has a great deal of PDFs on our site. However, my site, the Presbyterian.ca website, is a little different than what your site is going to be like. The Presbyterian.ca website is designed to be an educational site. Yours a little bit more specific to conveying quick and easy information to visitors to your site. So PDFs is like where you take, say, just throw up your church bulletin, or you just, take a Word document, scan it, and put it online. That's not what we want to do. It's one more barrier to someone using your website, because it's just one more click, one more download, and you just want to make that information as quick and easy to get to as possible. So ask yourself if you need to post things like your church bulletin. Maybe you do, that's fine, but it may not be crucial. Lots of churches do it, and sometimes I feel like they're posted just as something to put up that's new, rather than because that information is actually being accessed. Maybe it is because maybe there are people that are following along with the service remotely. Maybe you live stream and they want to use the bulletin. There will be reasons why you post it, but ask yourself, make sure that you really do need to do it. Otherwise, it might just be a bit of a make-work project for something that's not being used. And what about your church newsletter? Try to avoid just including your church newsletter as a PDF download and having a page of all these downloads on there. If it just says July newsletter, people are not going to be clicking on it. Like, you need to take out the individual news items and put them as news on your site, or at least explain to people what they can expect in that PDF. And that's difficult to do sometimes with these really long titles. So PDF dumping is definitely not a best practice for websites. So just think about it before you instantly put something on as a PDF download. We could spend a lot of time talking about copyright and photo consent forms. So I'm gonna breeze over this as quickly as I can. But if you have more questions, you can ask a question on the chat, or you can contact me afterwards. But quickly with copyright, the times that churches have had run into troubles with copyright issues are really two areas. One is with posting photos they don't have permission to use, maybe something you've pulled off the internet, maybe a photo or something that doesn't actually have sort of not in like the sort of Creative Commons usage area. So just be careful about just because it's online doesn't mean you can instantly put it on your website. The stock images and things that you'll see in this presentation, for example, they're either open for use or they're through a stock photo service that we pay to use, and I have permission to use those photos. Many churches take images just off the internet. It's one thing to do when you're using that for your bulletin, but then when you post it online, it's a whole different ballgame. And that's another reason why it's good to avoid just putting up PDFs of everything, because you just want to make sure that you actually have permission to use those images. The other time that I see churches run into issues with copyright is if maybe they're doing something that they don't have the license for, like to do with promoting a movie night, and they've put up a clip of they're showing a Little Mermaid, and they've used a clip of the Little Mermaid, and there's not permission to do that. Just watch out for those things. It's not super common, but just keep it in the back of your mind. The one that I get more questions about is photo consent forms and photo consent in general. So we've done some research into this, and generally the way to look at it is, if you're at all nervous about taking pictures and using them on your website, as I highly encourage you to do because visuals tell such a great story, is that a church sanctuary is considered a public space in Canada. So you do have, in general, permission to take pictures. However, we want to make sure that we adhere to best practices. So what I usually recommend to churches is that they maybe put up a sign saying that occasionally photos are taken, and to please let one of the greeters or the minister know if you're not comfortable with that. Even better than that is doing a photo day, where you might have a photographer come and say, during the announcements at church, you'll say, today we have someone visiting us, we have a church picnic maybe afterwards, they're going to be taking photos. If you are unhappy with that, or if you're uncomfortable and you'd like to be out of it, just raise your hand, they'll come and see you, or go and speak to them privately. But then you kind of introduce the photographer. But then with that, you also do a little explanation as to why you're taking photos. Say what you're doing with them. We're using them on our church website to show the important work that we're doing here, to share our mission and ministry with others and encourage people to come and take part. You do a little pitch for it. That I find is generally the easiest way to do with it if you're at all nervous. There are definitely issues if you're taking photos, say in a private space, such as someone's home. Say there's a Bible study, you would need to sign, it would be best to sign photo consent forms, or at least at the bare minimum get verbal agreement that you can take someone's photo. And obviously, it goes without saying, you're not going to be taking photos in any kind of like sneaky fashion. These are like, obviously the photographer is very open and walking around with a camera, you know what they're doing, so you're just not doing it subtly when people aren't looking. We do have photo consent forms on the Presbyterian.ca website. I'll provide a link at the end of the presentation that you can go to if you need them. There's two forms. One is for people to agree to use their photo and have their photo taken. The other is if you hire a photographer and you want to get their consent to use their photos, you can download those forms as well. So basically, avoid stock images on your site as much as possible. It's not great when you're using stock images of a group of smiling people and none of those people go to your church, have ever gone to your church, and never will go to your church. So try to avoid doing that. It kind of misrepresents yourself. I know it's hard to get good photos. I know. However, you can do it. There has been amazing group photos that I have seen congregations pull together. And I know you can do it too if you need to get those. Try to avoid stock images. Now, that being said, if you want to use icons or there's appropriate times, like you're talking about communion and you want a stock image of like the bread and a chalice or something, that's fine. But again, just make sure you're using either paid for stock images or ones that you have the rights to use. The photo consent forms I already touched on, and just as part of leading with care and best practices, never publish children's names with their photos. I don't put first names at all, and definitely don't put first and last names. It's just best practices. We just don't do it. And so I mention this in particular because I do see a lot of churches putting their church newsletters online, forgetting that in the church newsletter they may have named the children under a photo caption when they post it online. Just try to avoid doing that. Just keep it in the back of your mind. So on that note, there are definitely confidentiality issues that sort of flare up every once in a while. And the main times I have seen this happen is dealing with churches that post their church directories on their website. I've seen some churches get around it by creating a members only area, but that can be a lot of extra work that you maybe don't want to maintain. In general, I try to encourage congregations to not publish that kind of information. It's something better to be held at the church office where you can monitor it and it's not made public. So I would discourage that. If you feel strongly the other way, you're just going to need to think about how people might feel about that and if there's going to be any potential concerns, and allowing people to sign off to say, I don't want to take part. The other one is to dealing with people who are deceased. Some people feel very strongly that a deceased person's image should not appear on the church website ever. Others feel that it, kind of removes that person from ever existing, and it hurts the family's feeling that they would be so quickly taken down like that. The best thing to do is ask the family and then have a congregation of how you're going to handle that. But just, again, keep it in mind when you're putting photos up, they do need to be updated, because you don't want to have pictures with people that are no longer either with the congregation because they've moved on. Okay. So here in a nutshell are some kind of things to keep in mind when you're developing the church website. Post content regularly, as often as you can, without creating a big burden for yourself. Just see if I can get this noise. Okay, so post content regularly. Delete old news and info. Your site is not an archive. If you're using your site as an archive, you need to rethink that that is not the purpose of a website. There's lots of other options. You can get an external hard drive and save all kinds of things. Don't use your website for that. Old news and info doesn't do you any favors. Take it down. I'm not going to give you a hard date as to when to take it down, because it's going to depend on the type of content that we're dealing with and how much you're posting regularly. But really you don't usually need things that are, like say, an event that's passed a couple months ago, it can probably come down now. If it's Christmas and you're sharing information about the church picnic from the summer, it can come down. But again, use your discretion. That'll be for you to decide in your local context. Avoid large chunks of text. That's just not how people read websites, as you all know. Think about how you use the website, use the internet. We don't read big blocks of text. Use headings and bulleted number lists as often as you can. It allows for people to scan because that's how people read a website. So if you have stuff you want to highlight, put it in the heading format. Quick things, put it in the list. Use images as often as you can because images really do tell a story. If you're trying to convey a feel for your congregation, images are going to be the best way to do that. You can certainly say, we are a very casual, gathering of people, and it's very informal, but then you show a picture of a bunch of people in jeans and shirts and stuff, you're going to convey that through the image much more quickly. And people love looking at the images too, so that both those things help a lot. Ensure you're using a readable font. Now, most templates, web templates, only use pretty good web vetted fonts, but just as a little tip here, you're going to want to stick with a sans serif font, like an Arial type of font versus something like with a serif, which is like Times New Roman. They're the ones that have the little doodads on the end of the letters. You're going to want to avoid that. It's been pretty much well researched that people online read a sans serif font much more easily than they read something with a serif. Again, most templates will avoid you even having that option. But if you're starting to fiddle around with fonts, just make sure it's readable. White space is very important on websites. It gives it that nice clean look. You just don't want clutter. Every year I always look up the award-winning worst website in the world, and every year it is a cluttered, manic, multicolored, multi-font, blinking lights, images moving mess. White space is your friend online. It's nice and clean, it's easy to read, it's easy to surf around. Keep it as simple as you can. Avoid underlining text. I'm always amazed at how often I see this, but again, I think it's because people are copying and pasting text from one channel to another, that there's often websites with a lot of underlying text, and just the way people use the web, underlined text usually means a link. So when you have text that's underlined, people are going to click on it thinking it's a dead link. Don't underline text online. It's just not how people use the web. So make contact information easy to find, and you might want to consider setting up comments on your website. It's a little bit of a tricky thing. I'm not sure it's always what you want to do. It might be something you want to experiment with. Most website templates will allow you to do that very easily, that you can comment on a web page. The problem with that is that spam, you can get an awful lot of spam that way. So it's not, if you're not going to monitor it, don't even worry about it, don't even bother, but make sure that there's contact information so people could email someone who is checking it regularly. But sometimes it's nice to have comments if you're posting something and allow someone to say something directly on that web page and show up on the web page. All of those would be, of course, vetted by you before anything ever went public. But you've got to make sure someone's going to monitor that, and would people actually use it? Those are some of the things you'd want to think about before doing that. Watch out for church lingo and acronyms. Say you've got a tab on your website for the WMS. Well, we know what that is, but lots of other people will not know what that is. And even people that maybe go to your church, maybe they've forgotten. It's not something they think about all the time. So if you're going to put a button or a tab or something to the Women's Missionary Society, you are going to want to spell it out. It slips in there all the time. I know it happens to myself as well, but try your best to avoid that. And one of the best ways to do that is have somebody else who's not as familiar with it go through and read your text. So like I said, consider how a visitor would interpret the information. One of the other things that comes up is we have certain ways of phrasing things. That's a very, kind of traditional church way of saying it. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but just just think about like maybe somebody who's not as familiar with the Christian church service or a Presbyterian church service, they maybe wouldn't know what that means. One example that does come to mind is when I was early in my Christian days, I didn't understand why when I was going to a Protestant church, why when we said the Apostles' Creed, we spoke about the Holy Catholic Church. I thought we were talking about the capital C Catholic, and I didn't know what that was about. And it took a few years until I finally figured that out. That's like a kind of a lame example, but there's like examples like that have come up all the time that new people don't know about. So just keep it in mind when you're putting content up there, and if there's a way you can help people out by explaining fully what you mean. I always say this at the end because I don't want this to sound too serious, because it really can be quite fun working on a website. You really can see the results of your work very quickly. You're getting information out to people, you're sharing great news about your congregation, you're keeping people informed. It can be really fun, so try to make sure when you're working on your website that you have fun. It can be good. You can really make it a great site that people are going to love, so try to enjoy yourself. Okay, so I've sort of gone through the bare bones of what like a good church landing page would have, and then some of the things that might kick it up a notch. But part of the reason I feel very strongly about some of these things, like about using white space effectively in images, is because there's been a great deal of information posted on, how people are using websites and how long they stay on there, and it's not long. So you've got to provide that key information that visitors want and need very, very quickly. Post timely, relevant content that is informative. Just make sure everything you put up there has a reason. Why is it up there? What is it saying? What is it communicating? Offer a strong, clear message. What's the story you're trying to tell about your congregation? If you're a joyful community of worshipers, your website better have some pictures of smiling people. What are the key details you want people to know about you? Make your pitch. What will someone experience when they come to visit you? These are things that this is how you get your site working for you. So establish that feel for your congregation. If the photo is of your minister, is them in their formal graduation gowns and hat, that's going to give a very different impression than a minister in a t-shirt and shorts. So what is your congregation like? Are you a more formal service? If so, make sure you represent yourself that way. Get that call to action in there. Make sure to specifically say, come and visit us, or something along those lines. Like I said, it's not enough to say you're a welcoming community. Go that one step further and say, please join us on Sunday mornings. So give people what they are looking for. That's what we're talking about today, the specific details to make sure that someone really does feel welcome and comfortable when they visit. They're going to want to come. Now we're going to get into a little bit more of the technical parts of design, just very high level, but a few things to keep in mind. Design excellence. This is where we're going to use photos, colors, making the templates work for us to assist in making that awesome church website that I know you're all going to have. Easy, clear navigation is a great way to get started. When surfing online, we usually know to look for additional pages. We're used to that. So make it easy for people to get through your site, to find their way around. It's not ideal to have tabs that are vague or maybe don't, like using an acronym or something. You make sure that it's very clear. I've seen some churches that say have a tab that says I'm new, and that's where they put all the important content for people that are new to the site. Pretty straightforward way of doing it. There's lots of different ways, and you can be very creative about it, just as long as it does what you need it to do. So research shows that online we have about 2.6 seconds to make an impression. I know I do it. When I'm visiting a new website, when I'm surfing around, it's lightning fast how quickly we form opinions about regular things in life, never mind when it's online. We do it very, very quickly. And that's why we have to make our site work for us right from the get-go. The average user stays on a web page for less than a minute. So we don't have a lot of time here. People are looking for something, and if they can't find it, they rotate off and they go somewhere else. The sections that are usually considered the areas where the research shows that people are looking at on websites are things like the logo, that main navigation bar, and the overall kind of design, the search box, the main image that's used on the homepage, the written content, and then the bottom and the footer. And what's that's called is F pattern eye tracking. That's how research has shown that people scan on a web page. For those of you that can see the screen, you'll see that it makes basically an F. We go across the top, scanning across the website, down the side, and across again at the sort of the F, forming the final line of the F. Those are the three areas that the eye spends the most time on. I say this because then you can make sure that your church navigation and layout works for you and fulfills that for people, that you're going to highlight information using that kind of F, and sometimes also an E with the footer at the bottom, those patterns working for you. So I don't know about you guys, but I use Google as my search engine for searching for things online, and I don't think I'm alone in that, because it's roughly, I think that they have considered about 92% of search engine usage is done through Google. And when I talk about white space and clean and simple design, take a look at the Google homepage, the main search page here, and compare it with this page, which is Yahoo. Like I said about clutter, mess, the eye doesn't know where to fall. There are too many competing images. There's too much text. This is hard on the eye. And it maybe explains why Yahoo only has about 1.2% of search engine usage. When you flick back between them, like it's night and day. You can use some of the same principles with your own work and on your own site by making it that nice, clean, crisp, easy to navigate, easy to move through websites. So I'm just going to leave you with a few links for more resources before we go into the question time here. Presbyterian.ca/communications is a great web page for resources to things. There's a lot of tools that you can use. We have links to the photo consent forms, the style guide, plus a collection of apps to help in areas like graphic design, creating forms, sending e-newsletters, and a lot more. That's a really great page. You might want to bookmark it and just go back to there, because lots of different church activities that you're doing, you might find some help on that page. Plus you get links to the PCC logos if you need them. There's all kinds of stuff. PCCweb.ca is the web page you're going to go to if you're interested in joining PCC Web and having your church website hosted through us, or if you maybe want to watch some of the online tutorials that are available there about using WordPress, or if you want to see a link to the full list of church websites that we currently host, you can see them there, and you might get some ideas by looking at what others are doing. I should mention that PCC Web is free of charge. There is no charge for that, and that is all thanks to the awesome funding provided by Presbyterian Sharing. And then finally, this is still a little bit in the development stages, but we're currently working on launching a website that is kind of like a dummy site. Like it's a site that has links and samples of what a church could look like. So we're calling it Your Presbyterian Church, basically Your PC, and it's got all kinds of information on there about where you can find examples of what's working well in other churches, things that you might not have thought about putting on your site. You can browse through that site, and that should give you some good ideas. Now, I did want to leave about 15 minutes at the end for some questions, but just a quick note that if you are interested in learning more about PCC Web and how to use it, especially for those of you that are already on the PCC Web platform, there is a webinar coming up on November 6th, run by James, our web coordinator, who is going to be going into more depth about using PCC Web and the technical side of it. So you can take part of that. If you want to sign up, just go to presbyterian.ca/webinars. And you'll find how to sign up for that and get a reminder. And it's Wednesday, November 6th. Also, if you think of questions after this webinar and you want to get in touch with me, by all means, send me an email, give me a call. We also have a great live chat feature on our website at presbyterian.ca that you can use anytime. During business hours when we're monitoring it, you'll get a live response right away, or you can leave a message after hours and we'll get back to you the following business day. So you can use that anytime, and it's been a really great service. Lots and lots of people are using it, and that's of course available for you as well. So let's take a look at some of the questions that have come in. Okay, so Meg, I just see that you say you have a separate page on your website for the minister and a contact us page. Include a small blurb or link on our homepage. For the minister and the contact pages, yes, usually contact pages are usually a tab across the top. So if you don't have it there, I would suggest you add it in, or at least in some kind of sidebar, so that that information is always kind of available on any page that you get to. The minister, you can decide. It's great if you want to put the minister's name and contact information, say, in a sidebar. That's awesome. Or if you have a clearly labeled navigation bar that's like, or the navigation tab that says, you know, ministry team or something along those lines, that might be what you feel is enough. But yes, it would be, you should definitely link to that information on the homepage at some point. Deborah is just suggesting creationswap.com is a fairly affordable site for graphics for website worship services. That's great. Thank you for the tip. We are always looking for tips like that, and we'll check it out, as all of you can as well. Linking to other websites, Fred is asking about, say, linking to the PCC website. Please do. We post that content, and it is all your content, really. All of you can use it. We try to post with that exact stuff in mind, and the same goes for social media. If we post something on social media and you want to use it and share it, please do. Any of the content, the links to resources, any of the PDFs, things like, say you want to link to the mission blog that for the international mission staff that we have, go for it. That would be great. What a great way to show what, you know, at your local context, what we're doing internationally. Maybe you want to link to the communications page of resources. Maybe you want to link to the Presbyterian Sharing webpage to show what we're doing through Presbyterian Sharing. By all means, that information is there for you to use. And then other websites, you kind of just, you're just going to maybe want to reach out and ask for permission depending on what it is. Like if, say, you're linking to a news article or something, you're just going to want to be very clear in the link that that's what you're doing. And probably the best practice would be to open that in content in a new tab or a new window. But yeah, I would maybe want to get permission depending on what it is. If it's something, you know, you're just sharing some information, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you're promoting something, you know, that's maybe where it would get just a little bit more dicey. But by all means, use the PCC social media posts, website posts, all of it is there for you to use. Okay, SEO, so search engine optimization. Deborah's asking about how to drive traffic to your website. One of the best ways to drive traffic to your website is to have a good website, because a good website gets used, and a website that is used will immediately come higher up on search engine searches. So if someone's searching for your church, it's a lot more complicated, and there's all kinds of things that you can do. And I would suggest that maybe I'll put that as a comment to talk about on the more technical webinar, but there are, in a nutshell, the way Google searches work is that it's through usage. So the sites that get the most hits appear more at the top. So that by having a good website, you're gonna deal with a good portion of that, but also using headings effectively. There's a lot more technical stuff I could get into, and maybe we could take that and continue that another time, and I'll get James to talk about a bit more about that in November 6th as well. I hope that at least gives you a little bit of an answer, Deborah. Okay, Meg, what about old sermons? Oh, great question, Meg. Thank you for asking that. This is, I'm gonna preface this by saying I feel a number of you are going to disagree with me on this one, but I am not a big fan of keeping up old information pretty much any kind. So I am definitely a fan of rotating that content off. Maybe you keep 2 or 3, but there really isn't a reason. I see church websites and there are, like, you scroll for pages through of old sermons, and I'm just not sure that that's useful to anyone. It's not super helpful. However, if there's certain ones that you feel really represent your congregation well, really is like a good example of what a sermon was like, or the type of material you delve into, keep that up as your example, because people are not going to go through and read all those old ones. They might just pick 1 or 2 to click on to get a flavor. So keep up kind of the ones you feel are the quote unquote best, and that they represent you the best, and that, you know, everyone agrees that this is like a great sermon to share with newcomers to your church. Now, the ones that for people that miss services and stuff, you want to obviously keep that up for at least a few weeks. So maybe you want to keep up to 3 sermons from the past, and then beyond that, any others that you want to highlight. And those would be clearly marked as, you know, want to hear what worship is like at St. Andrews, you know, listen to this sermon from this date, you know, and then it sort of feeds it to people like this is what you're trying to draw their attention to. But there's no reason to keep up all these, you know, dozens and dozens of old sermons on your site. If for some reason you're doing that, chances are, like I say, you're probably using the site as a bit of an archive, and that's just not what the site is designed to do. That's not how church websites are supposed to be used. Okay, I hope that answered that question. And Meg, we had a presentation at Presbytery about secure versus non-secure websites. Yes, there is a cost to securing the website, but we were told your website might get blocked from search engines without it. Yes, we actually just went through the process of securing the Presbyterian.ca website. So by secure, what that means for those of you that aren't sure is like when you type in the address bar that http://presbyterian.ca is now HTTPS, and that means it's a secure website. And that is just, you know, technology changes rapidly, and that is now the norm. That is definitely the norm, and that there are sometimes issues. Some people get warnings when they visit sites that aren't secure, so you don't want that. You definitely don't want that. If you can do it, you should definitely upgrade your site. For PCC Web, we are in the process of doing that now. So the hope is that that will be done by the end of the year, and that all PCC websites will be secured sites. You know, it's just kind of one of those things in technology. You do have to stay a little bit on top of these things and try to keep up a little bit, and that is one of the things that you should definitely keep up on is get your site secured as much as you can. But yes, there is a cost if you're not using through PCC Web. Okay, we've gone through a lot of content. I really hope I haven't overwhelmed you, and that you've got something from this that's going to be useful to you. Okay, a few more questions. Yep, send them all in. If you have them, keep going. Deborah, would you suggest we eliminate calendars? Oh, you guys are great with the questions. That is such a good question. If you have very little to post, get rid of it. An events calendar does not do you any good if in a monthly view, all it shows is Sunday worship. That does not make your site look very dynamic, or, you know, it gives an impression, right? So again, how would a visitor see that information? Now, if instead you have an events calendar and you've got your Girl Guide meetings and your Bible studies and, you know, your church hall rentals and all this information in your events calendar, the impression that that gives is that it's a very dynamic, very engaged, very active congregation. So absolutely keep your calendar. If you don't have that information, don't worry about it. Just take it down. Don't use that feature. You don't need to. You might want to put it in some kind of text format, like if, say, every Wednesday you have Bible study and Sunday is worship, and maybe that's it, then just put that in a text format. Or you have choir practice on Tuesdays, you don't need to use a whole calendar plugin to convey that information. But yes, if you can't fill it in, take it down. Thanks, Deborah. Michael's question, do many churches have volunteers doing the website, or is it mostly just staff? Okay, sorry if I missed that. So yes, I would say it's both. And I often try to encourage congregations to have many hands involved with working on the website. volunteers and staff, because the more people that you can have working on it means the more eyes you have on it, means the more content, you know, you sort of spread the load a little bit. So I would encourage you to try to have both. Just, you know, keep in mind that, you know, people could be posting things that you don't want posted, that you want it to be vetted through, you know, leadership. So, you know, make sure that you're making sure people are posting the things that they're supposed to post. But I highly encourage you to have both volunteers and staff doing it. It can be a lot for, say, just the church secretary to be doing that. That could be a lot, and you may just not get the quite as much content up there as you would like to get. And when you spread it out, you're going to have maybe you can establish like a small committee. You know, we're Presbyterians, we like that, so we can establish a small web committee to make sure that many voices are having an input into the website, because you don't just have to have people doing the technical side. You could actually just have people that are looking through the website, or people that are users of the website. They don't have to be the ones that are going into WordPress and doing the actual uploading and updating. You can have more than just that involved. So it doesn't just have to be for the few people that are maybe feel comfortable with using WordPress. And yes, it can be more than one person using it. You can have multiple users. You can also just share the login information if you wanted to. It's up to you. Yes, it's so true, Michael. Some people are still very surprised that seniors are using the website and even doing coding and using WordPress and building their own websites. Try not to get stuck in the idea that it's just for the younger people in your congregation. That's just not accurate anymore. So we're just at about 2 o'clock Eastern now, so I will wrap things up. Again, if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Anytime, anyone, myself, Sylvia, James, we're here to help. So feel free to let us know if you have questions or if we can do some help. Sylvia and I have been doing some one-on-one support with congregations that really want to do a bit more of a deeper dive into their site. And these are congregations that are using PCC Web, that we're helping them sort of customize their site a bit more. If you want to check out some of the ones that we have already done, mywestminster.ca is the website address for one, and then the Presbyterian Church in Kincardine, Ontario is another good example of one that you might want to check out. Check out other sites, check out other Presbyterian churches, and you'll get some good ideas about the great things that people are doing with their sites to help with yours too. So thank you very much, everyone. Good luck with all your work on your church websites, and I'm sure you're going to make them great. Take care, everybody.